I said soon. I may have lied, because problems are still happening. But I got it done. So, without any further ado, welcome back to Brands of the SVO. Today, SRVV, or Survival. Now, usually I would transition to like a cool edit or something, but I couldn't find any in time, so... Where do I start with this brand? SRVV, also known as Survival Corps, is an icon of Russian brands, whether it be their old-gen goods like the V1, Spetsnaz, or ATC, and clothing, or their mid-gen appearance with their pouches, Surpat. SRVV is one of the oldest Russian gear brands, having started in 1991, right after the Soviet Union was dissolved. The only other brand from that same era was A&A. SRVV is one of only two brands that can say they've been making gear for the Russian Federation since the start. They're also one of the few brands that can pride themselves on mainly equipping Russian special forces. A&A was always more for the general public, I guess you could say. Anyway, time to get on with my history lesson. Started in 1991, SRVV is infamous, mainly for its rigs and camos. Of course, with its old-gen Korean woodland collection, and later on its exported and contracted Surpat items. I'd even go as far to say that their admin pouch is also very infamous too. Survival Corps has always been notable for equipping the more specialized areas of the Russian government, ranging all the way from FSO, SVR, SSO, and mainly the FSB. But in the later 2000s, SRVV really cemented its place in history and pop culture with the development of Surpat. SRVV quickly had a signature camo that became easy to spot on Russian operatives. And in the 2010s, combined with the fact that FSB personnel were seen in Europe and America wearing this camo at counterterrorism competitions, it's no wonder that game developers quickly picked up on it and used it in games like Battlefield 3. This, combined with the gun and tactical culture in America at the time, and the interest in Russian items, made SRVV increasingly desirable in the US. While I don't know if they were the first, SRVV was definitely one of the more popular commercial Russian brands that you saw in America. If you were like me, during the 2010s you likely saw Mr. Gunslinger's videos on Surpat around 2014 and 2015. We can even see some Surpat items in games today, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, with its Horde FSB skin. All in all, I would say that SRVV has a niche place in pop culture and is one of the more internationally recognized brands. Hell, I remember seeing a tweet from someone who found a random older Surpat clothing set and immediately knew it was Russian. While that was a bit of information, I would like to glaze SRVV as much as possible. Now that I'm finally done with my history/pop culture lesson, we can finally move on to the gear. And, well, now we're just so late into the video, I have to add a bit of a disclaimer. Finding SRVV references was a bit hard, but luckily I can thank Volk for most of the references here. Reminder to follow his Twitter, he's pretty much the pillar of this channel, and posts a lot of cool references on Twitter. SRVV barely, or did not at all, label the people in these pictures, and while I did research on these guys and talked to a few people to make sure I was right, I was proven wrong a few times, so please note that some of these pictures may be mislabeled as who they are. Some may not be soldiers at all. I may have also messed up camos like Surpat 3D and Surpat, because I didn't realize that the most recent Surpat camo was actually 4 color when I was checking for 3 colors. There's also going to be a lack of a few branches here and there, and I'll mostly be vague because I couldn't find enough proof to claim that someone was X branch. While I do try my best in these videos, I will make mistakes, and I please ask you to feel free to correct me in the comments below. As usual, the pinned comment will hold any updated information about anything in the video that I got wrong. So with that out of the way, I can begin. Thank you for listening. Despite SRVV not having a large lineup of items, I was scared about the scarcity of references showing these items being used, and well, I was proven wrong, which is great. But the sad thing is, there might be some references here that I don't have merely because I couldn't find them in time, or find them at all. I tried to dig up through a bunch of my older references for every bit of Surpat I could find, and of course, me and Volk scoured, but we couldn't find everything. Anyway, after all that, let's finally get into the gear. We'll be starting off with helmets because there are a few choice references that make it pretty interesting. Now, it could be for many reasons, but all of the helmet covers I saw from SRVV were in Surpat, which I guess makes sense. However, there were none I could find in multicam, While I do believe that if you go to SRVV, you're more likely to get something from them in Surpat, it's likely that there are references of multicam SRVV helmet covers in use, like the 6P47 that was used in Gostimal. But my lack of finding one, well, it's a generic multicam cover. So, while I did look for one and tried asking around, I couldn't find any. The most common type was the SRVV Ops Corps helmet cover in Surpat, with references showing GRU, National Guard, PMCs, and of course, regular troops using them. There's even a reference of a guy making a scrim out of it. They're also matched with the MVG counterweight sometimes, though there are guys who only run the counterweight. Now, I could only find one reference of the Severant variant being used from a regular soldier. Now moving to the 6P47. Both of my references are regular troops using Surpat and Surpat Savannah, and the Savannah one has the NVG counterweight. There's also this single reference of a Surpat Savannah midge cover being used on a Seston Bush, but there's no information or a sign of who it could be from. Finally, one that blows me away, the Surpat Linux cover on an Olton. Now, this guy made me waste 30 minutes of my time. You've likely seen him before, and I don't know what's up with him, but he ripped off the comms from his Olton and seemed to replace the liner. I don't know. Just, there you go. And unless you plan on one-to-one him, don't use an Olton for your impression. Please. Now, onto vest. As you could likely guess, the most common type of vest from SRVV is the thorax and Surpat, which we can mostly see with regular soldiers and some GRU guys. Following that, the Savannah really only seems to be used by regular soldiers, but we did see one with a sober guy. There's also a few multicam and ATAX references. With multicam, we've seen it on regular troops, VDV, and GRU personnel. There's also this other one where I don't know who it is, but it's SRVV down to the socks. For ATAX, we've seen it on a regular soldier and a National Guard guy. As I said, sorry for the lackluster references, but if you're going to SRVV, you're likely going to get Surpat rather than other camos. For other vests, we've seen their older gen Alpha in Surpat and OD with regular troops. But let's move on to pouches, and this is why I brought up the SRVV admin pouch earlier, considering how many people I know who own it and use it without even owning any other SRVV pouches. We can see a wide range of SRVV pouches, with the majority of them being in Surpat, of course used by regular soldiers, GRU, PMCs, and for Savannah, we can see them with regular troops and GRU. We finally see a few SRVV multicam pouches with regular troops and even a Marine. Now, second to last, let's move on to clothing. There's only a few types of clothes SRVV offers in the current day, but there were a few beforehand. While I won't count the contract goods with Roseguardia, I will be counting some of the old gen clothes that are no longer on sale. So let's get those out of the way with SRVV's VDU top in Surpat. While I don't know the name of the top, we can see it here on a VDV soldier and a regular troop. Obviously, it never goes out of style. Next are the most commonly seen clothes, the Triary, which I'm sorry I'm butchering that, but really only the pants, which of course come from TPC. Anyway, as it goes, we can see them in Surpat with regular soldiers and GRU. At this point, I think you're getting the gist of who uses it. There's even people who just use the clothing on its own, as you could likely guess. Anyway, in Surpat Savannah, it mostly stays the same, GRU and regular soldiers, but there's also a sober guy. He also was the one with the thorax. There's also just a random guy with multicam, so Next would be their Velt series, which is just the pants without the knee pads. We've seen them both in Savannah and regular Surpat, only on regular troops. I forgot to put anything about like the winter sets, so here's a reference of a regular soldier. Sorry. And finally, I have to speak on the custom Voins in Surpat, but that doesn't quite tell the whole story there. These aren't custom ordered from Voin, instead they're custom made from the guy's older set of Voins. Most likely they're using the old field mod, or however you would call it, type pants in Surpat, which SRVV no longer stocks. There are a few references of the so-called field mod pants being used, but it's just two pictures and I think it's from the same guy. Finally, we'll move on to accessories, that being bags, extra protection, and other stuff that SRVV offers. Let's get off the good old stuff like their gloves and boots, which yes, they make. I couldn't really find much of their gloves being used, and well, for their boots, I don't really think anyone's going out of their way to try and get kosher boots unless they're doing a one-to-one. But SRVV's lineup of boots and gloves both have been seen. The gloves in the picture are the SOCOG gloves, while the boots in the picture are the Cyclone. I've never used SRVV gloves or boots, but from what I've heard, the gloves are pretty fine, and the boots are, well, They're pretty nice boots, honestly. Now onto their backpacks. In the photo I'm using, I have zero idea what it is, but their Special Operation, Tectus, and Paramedic backpack have all been seen in Surpat, while their Touareg has been seen in Multicam and Surpat Savannah. Also, the Molly GP bags, like the Zip 2, which we can see both in Surpat and Surpat Savannah. Anyway, now their Cinemats. Surpat Savannah, OD, and Multicam. Usually I add in what troops they're used by, but honestly, just like, use it if you want to, if you think it looks comfortable enough. Also, if you're your team's medic, which for some reason I see a lot of medics using SRVV. But no, thank you to all the medics and medic lepers. I love you, bro. The stretcher has been seen, and as their evacuation sling, which looks pretty good. I have something similar, and it's treated me very well. So I think that mostly wraps it up. I hope you find this video informal, or enjoyable, or both. I hope I helped you learn something, or helped you at all. Honestly, that's what I want to do. And, yeah, it's late. I planned on getting the video out today, yet the voiceover had to be redone like 2 times, and man, Adobe just isn't working with me, so yeah. Yeah, thank you for watching. Next video is probably on filming. I was supposed to do one after that. Whoever recommended me that, if I told you, I'm sorry, I forgot. Please try to remind me. And, as always, I'll see you next time.